And welcome to Guided Nature Walks with me, Greg. This is our second episode, and I've chosen probably the hottest day of the year to come out and film this. And it's going to be on my specialist subject, my favourite subject. Today we will do a deep dive into the oak tree. Now, the oak tree is a keystone species in the UK, but it's part of a wider group of species called the Quercus family. Within the Quercus family there are 500 different species. They grow in temperate regions, and essentially they are tall and very strong trees that produce acorns, a type of fruit which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Insert video or photo. So in the UK we actually have two different types of oak tree. We have the sessile oak and we have the English oak. Now behind me I've got a sessile oak because we're in the southeast, we're on acid soils, and for whatever reason the sessile oak tends to dominate around here. So basically the main difference between the English oak and the sessile oak is that the English oak has much longer stemmed acorns than the sessile oak. But they do both occur in several areas around the UK and also throughout Europe. So the oaks can occur as far south as Turkey, Italy, and as far north as sort of northern Poland, pushing into even Russia in places. So they're quite diverse, adaptable actually, very adaptable to the environment it's within, slow growing. Here we have the leaves. You can see they are deeply lobed with a vein running down the middle and closely attached to the main stem of the plant. You get a new oak tree every time an acorn falls out of the mother tree. Boom. And a tiny little oak tree sapling will grow from the ground. So it turns out that pretty much all of these little oak saplings in this clearing behind me are reliant on water and sugars from the parent tree. So-called mother oak trees preferentially share sugar and water resources through fungal mycelium through the soil to their baby acorns that are the same genetic material as them. After a few years of growth, oaks will probably reach around this height. This is properly an understory tree now, so it's getting some of the sunlight, as you can see right now. The bigger trees are getting, but it's only a few years old, and it's at this stage that these trees are really vulnerable to browsing from deers, and if livestock get into woods, livestock, so things such as cows, sheep, but predominantly deer are the main threat to trees like this. Oaks are also ecosystem engineers because of their deeply fissured bark. But deeply fissured, what does that mean? That means the bark creates all these little spaces for animals to hide behind, for plants to hide away from direct sunlight, to retain moisture. Lots of animals thrive with this adaptation on the bark. And one of them is the southern wood ant, which is climbing up and down these fissures and basically using them as roads. Then we've got little mosses hiding inside these. It is the middle of summer, so they're not that obvious. And then almost painted on this dry sort of silvery stuff is lichen, and in the winter that will come back a lot more strongly. Down here we've got mosses, so yeah, just lots and lots of stuff lives on the bark of an oak tree, and that's what makes it it's another reason it's an ecosystem engineer. So oaks are common everywhere because they're a great species for biodiversity. We've covered that, but they're also loved by man as well. I suppose we are actually our own species, and therefore of course we have a mutually beneficial relationship with the oak. So people used to use oak as a building material. So in a lot of the old buildings in the city where we are, Canterbury, are actually built from oak, and these buildings have lasted 500 years or more. In fact, there's one building in the cathedral itself, I forget exactly what it's called, but that's almost 1,000 years old, that building, and it's made from wood from Blean Woods, where we are right now. So those trees might have been growing over 1,000 years ago, and then were harvested at sort of this sort of stage, and then the timber used to support a building. And the reason it can last so long is because the adaptation of the tree. So the tree is adapted to strong westerly, southwesterly winds, but I mean it's adapted to winds from anywhere. But it's windy in Britain, so you need to be a tree that can resist a lot of force through your canopy. And the tree does this by having a very, very strong outer layer. Sometimes the strength of the oak is in sort of the very outer band of its trunk. You'll be able to see another adaptation of the oak if we look up now. You'll see that the boughs of the tree have evolved in such a way that they almost twist and curl around themselves like fingers on arms, and this is to be resilient against the strong winds that come through here. Let's do a full recap. So oak trees are little saplings for a few years, then they grow into small understory trees where they remain, perhaps looking for an opportunity like a coppice cycle, where they can try and raise above the other understory trees, and then they grow into a mature oak tree, and by the time they're mature they're probably over 100 years old. But this is only the beginning of an oak's life. Oak trees, if left undisturbed, will actually live for about 400 years, although there is some variance to that, as there is with humans. There are some extreme cases where oak trees have lived a lot longer. The one I know the best is the oak that's considered the largest oak in England, and that's the Majesty Oak at Fredville Park in Kent, which I visited that earlier this year. And it's an amazing sight. The oak is 40 feet in diameter, so that's 12 meters all the way around. It's really big. Now, of course, when oaks reach the end of their life, they become a food source themselves, and that is for different species of fungi, beetles, termites, ants. Many species rely or survive off the fact that the oak dies and needs to be decomposed. And this decomposition could take many years because obviously they're big plants, big species, and so they take a long time to decompose. But even in their death, they provide life to the ecosystem. And actually, I'm super interested in the fungi side of things, but we're gonna have to save that for another video. We'll do a deep dive on some fungi, I'm sure. We'll do a few episodes on that. If you're enjoying this content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give me a like, let's get these videos popping off. Let me know if you'd like to see any additional content. And actually, I've got something I want to share with you guys. I do a guided tour, so you can find my guided tour on Get Your Guide, link in the description of this video if you want to check that out. If you come to Kent, you're interested in wildlife, or you just want to learn more about the woodlands, come find me on Get Your Guide, book a tour.
And yeah, thanks very much for watching.
Okay, welcome along to another episode of Guided Nature Walks. This is episode 2. Now I have an ant crawling up my leg. It's going well, it's going really well.